Midnight horror. 12 sinister customers exposed at my fast food job. The unexplained awaits. Emma shivered as she punched in for her shift at the small fast food joint, glancing at the flickering neon sign outside. The glow seemed to pull shadows in like a hungry mouth. The drive-thru chimed innocently, but something felt off, as if the air held secrets darker than fry grease. She was alone, and the stillness felt alive, pulsating with unease. As midnight crept nearer, the customers trickled in. At first, they seemed ordinary enough until she noticed their wide, fixed smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. Among them was a tall man with a gaunt face, half hidden by a battered cap that slipped down too low. Each time he returned, he made absurd requests, ID like a shadow burger and a slice of fear, please. Emma laughed nervously, but the laughter echoed around her, offering no comfort. The other workers had already vanished one by one, slipping into the night like whispers that never came back. Hey, where's Marcus? She asked a customer casually chewing gum. Their eyes darted to the door, mouth shutting tight. She brushed it off, but a chill curled down her spine. Thoughts of Hannah, the bubbly cashier too scared to walk home, crept in. Was it just tiredness or the heavy atmosphere that pulled at her heart? Rumors of a missing girl swirled in her mind, echoing in the whispers around her. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. As she stacked fries, a gnawing sense of dread filled the air. The chime became a distorted echo, mocking her with whispers of things hidden just beyond the neon glow. Customers giggled softly, eyes glinting too bright in the darkness. Emma caught movement outside, a swirl of shadows creeping, lurking behind the light. She felt the weight of their stares pressing down on her, and as she turned, the tall man loomed closer, his grin twisted and sinister, taking shape in the half-light. Her heart raced, pounding against her ribs. The doors, they were locked. Panic gripped her, and Emma fought against choking fear as she scanned the room. Their smiles, ghoulish and wide, filled her with dread. Then she noticed a photograph he had tossed absent-mindedly, a face she recognized from her childhood. Mr. Thompson, the man always so kind with heavy bags and sweet words. Emma, his voice dripped like honey as he leaned closer, the crazed glint of madness in his eyes. She felt trapped, cornered. Every sense screamed that escape was impossible. The atmosphere thickened like fog wrapping tightly, and just then, the lights flickered, plunging her into darkness. Metal scraped against the floor, a sickening sound that echoed her spiraling thoughts. Was there anyone left? Where were her coworkers? As the weight of isolation crashed down, shadows danced around her. Through the chaos, she could not shake the paralyzing question. Who were these people really, and why were they gathering here, in this fast food drive-thru? The air thickened as Emma stood frozen in the suffocating darkness. Her breath quickened, short gasps filling the void around her. She fumbled nervously for the flashlight tucked in her pocket, the small beacon of hope against the encroaching shadows. If only the lights would burst back to life. In the blackness, the giggles morphed into whispers, low and conspiratorial, slithering around her like serpents. Panic clawed at her chest. Every instinct told her to scream, to run, but terror held her in place. The metallic scrape echoed again, close, too close. She switched on the flashlight, the beam cutting through the gloom, illuminating a twisted tableau of faces no longer friendly, masks of excitement and hunger, longing for something sinister. Emma, the voice crooned from the darkness, familiar yet foreign. It wasn't Mr. Thompson anymore. It transformed, distorting into something cruel. She spun around, her heart hammering. Who was there? The flashlight flickered, weakening as if recoiling from the dread surrounding her. Emma's eyes darted, catching fleeting glimpses of silhouettes standing like statues, their smiles now sharp and hungry, waiting for her to make a move. Each flicker of the light revealed a glint of teeth, eyes reflecting something primal, something starved. Play with us, Emma, they sang that chilling melody, layering her name like honey over poison. The whispered voices filled the air, seeming to seep through the walls like tendrils of smoke closing in on her. She could almost hear the weight of their own stories, groans wrapped in shadows, layered with the bitter laughter of the consuming dark. "Please," she whimpered, gripping the edges of the counter for any semblance of security. "Let me out." Suddenly, the front door slammed open, the bell jingling erratically as a gust of wind swept through, twisting the shadows into chaos. The figure standing by the entrance was like a dark night, wreathed in swirling black, almost as if the night had birthed him. The tall man was there, wielding the surreal aura of mockery. He gestured toward the gathering. "I have arrived," he declared, laughter bubbling in his chest. "The feast begins." As he stepped closer, the shadows stirred, and the vague shapes darted towards him, snaking around his feet like minions celebrating their master's return. Emma's instincts roared to life, and adrenaline thrummed through her veins. "No," she yelled, flipping the flashlight beam at him, desperate to keep the darkness at bay. But the faint beam only revealed what she truly feared. The smiles grew monstrous, the laughter crescendoed, and the shadows seemed to merge into one, becoming an entity that pulsed and breathed. A low growl resonated from the throng, stirring something deep within her, a primal fear that tickled her spine. "Join us," echoed the haunting chorus, and they started to advance. Emma stumbled back, her heart racing against every terrifying thought that clouded her mind. She needed to get out. She had to try and escape that. As she turned to bolt towards the kitchen, a sudden realization dawned. The employees hadn't just vanished into the night. They had become a part of this sinister gathering. Their smiles haunted her. Echoing memories flashed like lightning. Hannah, with her kind heart, showing her how to make fries. Marcus, always cracking jokes to lighten the night shift. Where were they now? The shadows twisted with each question, tightening the grip of dread around her throat. Skidding behind the counter, Emma barely managed to catch her breath. She could hear the swelling cacophony of voices closing in, hungry and eager. The kitchen window, heart hammering. She turned her focus toward the sullen rectangle of glass. If only she could reach it before they found her. Suddenly, a figure slipped through the door. This one stood straight, wearing a slicing smirk, eyes locked onto her with sinister intent, seeing right through her. "Emma," it whispered, "you didn't think you could leave, did you?" With the weight of that chilling sentence, the ground beneath her felt unstable, like teetering on the edge of a chasm. The shadows swirled, threatening to engulf her, pulling at her resolve. She had to do something. She wouldn't be another lost face in this twisted fast food nightmare, or would she? Before she could react, the laughter erupted into a terrifying crescendo, filling the void. What's the truth hiding behind the smiles? Emma would soon find out. Emma pressed herself against the cold countertop, the surface slick with grease and fear. The figure drawing closer wore an expression devoid of humanity, just a smile stretched too wide, too eager. The lights flickered again, a warning sign, or perhaps an invitation to the nightmare that awaited her. "Come play, Emma," they chanted, their voices blending like a haunting melody, laced with anticipation. With a thundering heart, she glanced toward the kitchen window, her only hope. It felt miles away, and the sinister laughter seemed to push her into the shadows. Each flick of the flashlight only deepened her terror, revealing more faces contorted in glee, twisting toward her, begging for release. "What do you want?" she shouted, her voice trembling, thin in the oppressive darkness. Their laughter morphed into cackles, reverberating in the walls around her. "We want you, Emma. You will join us." Every instinct screamed at her to run, though her legs felt leaden, rooted in the spot. Shadows flickered closer, the figures elongated and distorted, stretching towards her like fingers beckoning her into the abyss. Emma's mind raced, pulling at memories of the employees, those once jovial souls now lost in this grotesque masquerade. Had they truly vanished, or were they merely trapped? A sudden realization cut through the panic. "You can leave them alone," she pleaded, the words tumbling out in a desperate rush. Each heartbeat thundered in her ears. "I'll stay, just let them go." "I won't scream. I won't tell anyone." One figure stepped from the throng, a woman with a cascading veil of hair and hollow eyes that glimmered with malice. "Oh, sweet Emma, you don't understand. They are not just lost, they are home. The implication churned her stomach. Home, she echoed, disbelief carving deep lines in her face. Yes, they found solace in the darkness. The woman's voice was almost soothing, like a siren-esque call pulling her closer. Just like you will soon. Before Emma could counter, the man in black swept through the throng like a phantom, eyes like ice cutting through her panic. Let the game begin. One last player, one final thrill. The crowd surged forward, laughter drowning out her protest. She had to move, had to act. With every ounce of adrenaline, she threw herself toward the kitchen, her mind racing. She couldn't die here, not among the twisted smiles of the damned. The window loomed closer now. Emma could taste the salty air, could almost hear the distant sound of sirens wailing in the night, a warning sign no one had heeded. She took a deep breath, adrenaline sharpening her senses, and lunged. Just as her fingers brushed the frame, a gelatinous hand snaked around her wrist, pulling her back. The laughter surged, drowning her sanity in a wave of terror. Not yet, our dear, came the dark night's voice, now a chilling whisper beside her ear. You'll play with us first. The flashlight flickered one last time and died, plunging her into a deeper darkness. The hands of her captors grabbed at her, claws digging into her flesh as they pulled her into their circle, the cacophony of laughter rising to a deafening crescendo. She closed her eyes, trying to gather her thoughts amid the chaos, knowing that if she faltered, she would be lost forever. A sudden brilliance surged through her thoughts, like lightning in a storm. I want to be a pawn in your twisted game, she yelled, ripping her arm free just as the shadows tightened their grip, giving her a fraction of a moment of clarity. With her heart hammering, she looked for anything to defend herself. A knife lay gleaming on the counter. Did she dare seize it? Could she fight back against the impossible? Emma, make your choice. The chorus coiled around her, sweet and sinister, in the suffocating blackness. The echoes of laughter grew louder, inviting and taunting her. Each second, like a heartbeat, chased her to the edge. Desperation clawed at her throat. The choice loomed before her: fight or be devoured. What would escape even mean in this deranged game? As she lunged for the knife, a cold grip seized her. Heart, what if it was already too late? But perhaps the shadows held a secret she had yet to uncover. What would happen if she didn't just fight, but discovered the truth buried deeper in the darkness? The knife felt heavy in her hand, cold and metallic. Emma gripped it tight, as the laughter morphed into something more sinister, a discordant symphony that rattled her bones. She could barely see, shadows swirling madly around her like a storm, but she had made her choice. Stay back, she shouted, her voice echoing despite the chaos, a thin veneer of courage in her trembling tones. Yet the circle closed in, the figures undulating like a nightmarish tide. Fear coursed through her veins as the woman with hollow eyes stepped closer, her smile widening, showing teeth too sharp and too many. Do you think the knife can save you, Emma? The woman's voice slithered through the air, coated in malice. The darkness is what truly wields the power. Emma's breath quickened as she raised the knife defensively, glancing from the man in black to the surrounding figures. Realizing they were not just after her flesh, but after her spirit, her very essence, ignited new urgency within her. They weren't just a crowd. They were a legion, each a host of a twisted desire to pull her into their chaos. Let us make it interesting. The man in black cried out as his eyes glinted with a manic thrill. He raised a hand, signaling the others to halt. Emma will face the truth of her choices. For all that you leave behind, you must uncover what it wishes to keep hidden. The laughter stopped, replaced by a thick silence that wrapped around her like a cloak. She felt the weight of their gazes, piercing through the darkness. The knife shook in her hand, unsure if it was a weapon or a crutch. What truth? Emma asked, her voice wavering but resolute, barely echoing in the heavy atmosphere. The woman nearest to her pressed a bony finger to her lips, shushing her. Do you really think your fear is all you have? She hissed playfully. Your truth is like a mask, beautiful on the outside, but grotesque within. Something in Emma's gut churned. What are you saying? It's time for a reveal, the man in black declared, laughter spilling out of his lips like poison. Shadows don't only conceal. They reveal the darkness we all carry. Let us see what lurks in your heart. With a snap of his fingers, the shadows retreated, revealing a stark white light shining down on her. Suddenly, Emma was not just facing the figures surrounding her, but also a warped reflection of herself that materialized from the blinding glow. The figure mocked her, twisting into her worst fears, her failures, her insecurities, all the moments where she felt weak. Emma stumbled back, terror gripping her as the doppelganger sneered. "Is this what you hide from, Emma? This is your home now, your truth waiting to devour you whole." "No, I want tea," she gasped, resolutely pushing the knife forward. But her reflection laughed, a cruel sound like shards of glass clinking together. "Fight us all you want, but this darkness is you. We are connected, you cannot escape." The shadows around her surged forward, rearing like snakes ready to strike, the laughter swelling once again. Emma felt the weight of despair bearing down, dragging her thoughts into the depths. Just as the hands reached out to grab her, her instincts kicked in, and she swung the knife with all her might. The blade sliced through the air like lightning, aimed straight at the heart of her twisted reflection. But before it could connect, the laughter halted abruptly. The figure shattered into 1,000 particles, like dust in the wind. Silence hung thick, then erupted into chaos again as the crowd erupted with joy, an unnerving cacophony. She found a piece of herself. The woman with hollow eyes crooned, clapping her hands in twisted delight. Emma's heart raced. Had she won? Or was she only beginning to lose? With the shadows swirling around her like a shore of ink, a new dread settled in. Dread for what other truths lay ahead, waiting to be unveiled in the mind's abyss. And just then, she understood. The shadows hadn't gone away. They were still there, lurking, waiting for her next move. What awaited her beyond this victory? Was there an escape, or was she sinking deeper into the darkness? The game was far from over. Emma stood frozen, breath shallow and ragged. The aftermath of her battle with the warped figure left her disoriented. The crowd's cheers faded, replaced by a suffocating silence that wrapped around her like a thick fog. She could still feel the pull of the shadows, their presence unyielding as if they were waiting for her to falter. "Do you feel it, Emma?" The man in black whispered, his voice now as smooth as silk. "The thrill of the hunt? Every truth you faced is just a door, leading to more. There's much more to uncover if you dare." Her heart raced. She had faced the twisted reflection, but what satisfaction came from victory? It was hollow, leaving her yearning for clarity amid the chaos. The laughter of the crowd faded into a soft, sinister lull, wrapping around her like an embrace full of malice. She gripped the knife tighter, feeling its cold metal cool against her palm, a lingering reminder of her defiance. "Your greatest fear is the unknown," the woman with the hollow eyes intoned, stepping closer until Emma could see her face more clearly. "But what if the unknown pleases you? What if it shows you things you actually crave?" A crooked smile crept across her lips, and Emma recoiled, nausea rising in her throat. "I want nothing from you," Emma shouted, the trembling in her voice betraying her resolve. She swung the knife outward, a wild, desperate gesture meant to dispel the encroaching figures. The crowd didn't flinch. Instead, they parted slightly, revealing a narrow passageway built by the shadows, a warped tunnel that seemed to beckon her forward. Emma took a cautious step back. The shadows whispered, slithering around her ankles, rippling like a dark tide. "Choose, dear Emma," the man in black purred, leaning toward her from the vortex of darkness. "Step forward, embrace what lies ahead, or remain ensnared in regret, shackled to your fears. Either way, the game continues. But it's your choice, and it can be the difference between salvation or damnation." Her heart thundering, Emma knew what they wanted. They thrived on despair. With trembling hands, she made a choice. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward into the shadows. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of her own dread mingled with twisted voices from the darkness. Images flashed in her mind, nightmares she thought she had buried. Rejections, lies, moments of weakness, and the hardest truth, her own greed for validation. The way she made herself small, the darkness pulsed, and with each step forward, the figures closed the circle tighter. The air thickened, compressing around her until it felt suffocating. "Welcome to your next trial," the crowd sang in unison, their voices haunting and sweet. Emma felt the knife slip slightly in her grip, almost too heavy to bear. She stumbled, the shadows flickering around her like flames. Did she dare confront another truth? What awaited her in the depths of her own making? Suddenly, a flash of memory pierced through. A deep ache flared in her chest of forgotten loss. It was a shadow of a love she abandoned. Whispers began again, soft, tugging at her heart. That love had been pure and true, buried under layers of feared as if sensing her realization. The woman with the hollow eyes grinned wider, the darkness swirling in sinister delight. Ah, Emma, you are not alone in this darkness. But with love comes the possibility of pain. Can you face it? Or will you let it consume you? Tension coiled in Emma's gut as she stood at the precipice of another choice. The shadows buzzed with anticipation, hungry for her decision lingering at the edge of her consciousness. But what if the truth she needed to confront was exactly the one she had tried to leave behind? The shadows tightened their grip, and Emma braced herself for the storm approaching. Would she dare to embrace the love lost or succumb to the chaos of her despair? The darkness laughed slowly, the echoes reverberating in her mind, and that laugh grew louder. What awaited her in the abyss? She had to find out, or be trapped forever. Emma steeled herself. The true horror was not just outside, but what lay within. What truth would she reveal? And would it save her or doom her? The shadows danced around Emma, their laughter echoing yet soothing, a strange melody filled with false promises. It was intoxicating. As the darkness enveloped her, visions swirled, each memory a jagged shard cutting through her thoughts. She saw him, the face of the love she had lost, and felt the weight of all those moments she wished she could take back. Can you feel it? The longing? The woman with hollow eyes crooned, her voice a thread weaving through Emma's heart. It's real, Emma, deeper than your fears. Embrace the pain, let it guide you. What could you become? Emma's grip on the knife began to slip as a wave of suffocating warmth washed over her. Her heart thrummed with both fear and an undeniable attraction to the shadows. What if the darkness showed her more than just what she feared? What if it unveiled the love she had allowed to rot in the corners of her mind? A flicker of hesitation wound its way through her. I don't want this, she murmured, but her voice felt weak, like a whisper. The shadows tightened around her, squeezing until she struggled to breathe. Every choice has its price, my dear, the man in black intoned, his presence prickling like ice down her spine. You can run, but deeper truths always resurface. With a shudder, Emma sank into the abyss. The laughter transformed, twisting into a growl, raw and grotesque. She was no longer just an observer. She was part of this grotesque spectacle, a puppet in a dance macabre. How many times had she buried her truth, pushing it down until it was just a shadow of itself? Suddenly, she was standing in a scene so familiar it took her breath away. It was her living room, cluttered and bright, but devoid of life. She could see the flickering light of a candle illuminating the corners, casting long shadows over the walls. And there he was, Jake, sitting on the couch, looking at her with sadness etched into his features. The pain in his eyes mirrored her own. Why did you leave? He asked, his voice cutting through the haze. You chose fear over love. Why couldn't you see? The shadows hissed, their whispers darting around her mind, urging her to speak, to confess the truth that had long festered. I was scared, she finally whispered, the admission raw and powerful. I thought I could drown the pain, and in trying to control it, you lost everything. He interrupted, the shadows around him twisting, pulling at his form as if trying to swallow him whole. Emma stepped forward, reaching out, but the space between them stretched impossibly wide. No, she shouted, the desperate sound slicing through the cacophony of whispers trying to ensnare her. This isn't real. You're not real. But do you believe that? The man in black challenged, stepping closer, his grin stretching impossibly wide. What is real? What you see or what is buried beneath the surface of your heart? Emma's heart hammered in her chest as the room around her began to slide away, eroded by the swell of shadows. Suddenly, the scene morphed. She was in the old diner where they used to sit, talking for hours, the chatter of a vibrant world pulsating all around them, full of laughter, warmth, and untold dreams mixed with the bitter sting of regret. Emma, Jake's voice echoed through the chaos. Face it, you can't hide anymore. This is where everything began and ended. The figures in the crowd shrieked joyously as if in agreement, their faces blurred, but their eyes glimmered with anticipation. Emma realized the truth was not just about facing her failures. It was about reclaiming what was stolen, the love she abandoned. What if I can't? She gasped as she felt the darkness creeping in, clawing at her thoughts. The laughter erupted again, sharp and jarring, as she was enveloped deeper into her memories. Everything seemed to unravel, and a storm of doubt squeezed around her like a vice. Could she pull herself out? Just then, the shadows shifted again, the diner's neon lights flickering ominously. A voice emerged from the dark, old and cracked, yet persuasive. Do you want to keep living in this lie, or embrace the truth before it destroys you? The question hung heavy in the air, and Emma's breath caught. Did she dare face the depths of her own despair? The knife slipped slightly from her grip once more, the steel glinting with an eerie light. How long could she hold on? But what if letting go was the only way to save herself from the shadows threatening to swallow her whole? What if the greatest horror was yet to come? The shadows swirled faster, consuming the diner in a whirlpool of memories that clawed at Emma's sanity. The beeping of the neon sign faded to an ominous hum, echoing against the walls of her mind. Jake's voice lingered, a haunting melody she couldn't escape. Face it, this is where everything began and ended. She clutched the knife tighter, her knuckles turning white. Fear seeped through her veins like ice. What was real? The warmth of Jake's love, or the gut-wrenching reality of her choices? The cacophony of laughter blended into a chorus of anguish, drowning her thoughts. Shadows slithered beneath the tables, creeping closer, whispering her darkest fears. You turned away, you let him go. But he's always here just beneath the surface, they taunted, their voices slithering into her consciousness. Stop, Emma shouted, her voice trembling as she stumbled backward, the knife quivering in her grip. The light flickered violently, and for a moment, she caught a glimpse of something lurking just beyond the edges of her perception, a figure cloaked in darkness. Watching her, suddenly, the world twisted again. She gasped, finding herself in the parking lot of the diner, surrounded by familiar faces of customers long forgotten. They stood in a half-circle, their eyes wide and empty, faces like masks twisted in expectation. Their shadows stretched toward her, creeping closer as if they longed to pull her under. Emma, join us. One of the customers, a woman with red lipstick smudged across her cheek, beckoned. We've waited so long for you. You belong here, with us. Stop. Emma screamed, turning to run, but the asphalt morphed into black sludge, gripping her feet like a trap. Each step she took only sank her deeper into the grip of despair. The customer's laughter rang in her ears, grotesque and haunting. How could she escape? She was being swallowed whole. Adrenaline surged as she fought against the muck, every heartbeat echoing in her ears. You can't escape. The shadow's laughter blended with her memories, spinning together in a fiendish dance. You chose fear. You let him go. You can't hide. Trembling, Emma felt bile rise in her throat. I'm sorry, she gasped, but forgiveness was nowhere to be found. The lady with the hollow eyes appeared in front of her, placing a cold hand on Emma's cheek. Apologies are meaningless in this realm. You must pay your price. But just as despair threatened to drown her, a warmth ignited within her, a flicker of hope. It was a memory of laughter and love, something bright in the sea of shadows. She fought against the tempting darkness, pulling that moment closer. I want to let you take me. A spark ignited, momentarily pushing the shadows back, illuminating the faces surrounding her, revealing their true forms. Twisted and grotesque as they were, they mirrored the choices she had made. But the warmth of the memory was fleeting. The shadows surged forth, pressing harder, their whispers raising to a maddening crescendo. You can't stand against us. You're one of us now. Suddenly, the ground shook as the figures lunged for her, pulling her closer to the bottomless void. Emma stumbled, gasping, and felt the knife slipping from her fingers. The blade clattered to the ground at her feet, cold and unyielding that a sick realization flooded her. The knife, once a symbol of strength, now felt like a weight dragging her deeper. She locked eyes with the man in black, his grin widening. Your greatest horror isn't just those around you, Emma. It's you. It's what you have become. With one last desperate breath, Emma attempted to grasp the runaway memory, but as she reached, the ground cracked, and the darkness opened wide, ready to swallow her whole. Then, from the depths of the shadows, an unexpected voice emerged, a raw, desperate scream that pierced through the darkness. Emma, don't give in. But who was calling her? Could this voice be a lifeline, or another cruel trick of the shadows? Determined to find out, she squinted into the encroaching darkness, fighting against the tide that sought to consume her. Emma had a choice to make. Embrace the truth she had been hiding from, or let the shadows claim her forever. She braced herself. Only one question hung in the air like a noose. What awaited her if she chose to confront her darkest fears? The scream echoed, reverberating through the black void, wrapping around her like a lifeline, urging her to fight. Emma squinted into the shadows. Who? She gasped, the word barely escaping her lips, choked by fear. The laughing faces twisted together into one haunting visage. The woman with the smudged lipstick leaned closer, eyes glinting with a malevolence that chilled Emma to her core. They're only pretending to save you, she whispered, breath hot and tainted. It feels good here. Join us. No, Emma shouted, heart thumping, straining against the suffocating darkness. She wanted to cover her ears, drown out the laughter, but the woman's voice twisted into something hollow, echoing her regrets. Emma closed her eyes, forcing herself to remember the warmth, the joy she once had. But with each recollection, shadows clawed at her, dragging her down. Suddenly, that voice cut through the noise again. Emma, fight. You're stronger than they think. Jake? It pierced the cloud of despair. Could it really be him? She felt her breath quicken, heart racing as flickers of light broke through as she concentrated on that familiar warmth. Laughter. Freedom. Love. A warmth flickered in her chest like a small flame, pushing back against the darkness for just a moment. Break free. With each push against the dark, the memories turned into something bright, shielding her from the cold grasp of despair. The customers' faces warped in confusion. No, you can't escape. They surged forward, their twisted hands like grasping vines, attempting to pull her back into their realm of misery. Her feet finally broke free from the dark sludge. I won't let you have me, she screamed, and in that moment, every ounce of her being surged forward. She pushed against the wave of shadows and felt the grip of gravity release just slightly. Glimmers of silver light flared around her, illuminating the figures just enough to see their true forms, specters writhing, disfigured by their own pain and anger. Emma felt the cold caress of despair begin to fade, but she wasn't safe yet. The man in black stepped out from the shifting shadows, his eyes glowing with malice. Do you really think you can escape? He snarled, stretching out his long, bony finger. Every choice you made has led you to this moment. You are theirs. No, she shouted again, weaving through the gathering shadows, her thoughts swirling like a tempest in her mind. Jake's voice flooded back, echoing warmth through the darkness. I choose love over fear. And she felt the love. The warmth consumed her, igniting her courage. The memories were sharp, searing through her. Memories of laughter over greasy fries, whispers shared under flickering lights, the sweetness of stolen kisses. She was more than her fears. She was the light breaking through the darkness. Suddenly, the shadows writhed back, thrown off balance. They screamed. The sound scraped against Emma's ears, a cacophony of pain and anger. You made your choice. The man in black hissed through gritted teeth, rage boiling within him. Now, face the consequences. As the darkness recoiled, she realized the truth. This wasn't just a battle for her life, it was a fight for her very soul. The knife lay abandoned on the asphalt, but it was no longer needed. Hope, rising like a flame, fueled not by rage, but by connection, by love. Then, like thunder, the ground trembled as the shadowy figures lunged again, desperation thick in the air. Emma steadied herself, feeling every heartbeat pound with determination. She had to confront this twisted mirror of herself. She had to choose once more. But as she gripped the warmth of her memory, an unexpected tremor rippled through the ground. The shadows surged one last time, and she could see them distorting as if they were unsure of their position. Where are you going? Emma sneered defiantly. The truth flickered, threatening to overflow. Show me. But the chilling laughter grew overwhelmingly loud, drowning her determination. She felt the fissures of reality start to separate. Would they separate her from the light she clung to, or would they be her salvation? The shadows roared, closing in around her, but she stood firm. What awaited her on the other side of this darkness? Would she be freed from this torment, or would she find a deeper horror within herself? The darkness writhed, an unending void. And just before the ground could pull her down, the lightweight flicker of her memory danced at the edges of her consciousness. Emma. The voice rang out once more, strained but hopeful. Don't quit now. She took a step forward, into the chaos, ready to embrace whatever truth lay ahead. Would it be her salvation, or would it shatter her forever? The shadows surged like a tidal wave, a living entity ready to swallow her whole. Emma stood at the precipice of that abyss, her pulse roaring in her ears. The sickly sweet scent of despair clung to the air, making her stomach churn. Every part of her screamed to turn back, to retreat from the horrific visions that wrapped around her like chains. But Jake's voice burned bright in her mind, a beacon guiding her through the turmoil. Move, she shouted against the cacophony of ghostly wails. They clawed at her, the grasping tendrils trying to ensnare her once more. With every heartbeat, she pushed against their relentless pull, every ounce of her spirit ignited by defiance. The laughter morphed into a thunderous roar, echoing through the void. Shadows tumbled together, shifting and blending into grotesque forms. Faces emerged, twisted and sorrowful those she used to know, now trapped in an endless loop of fear and regret. Clarity mixed with panic as she recognized familiar features. Emma, help us, they cried, voices overlapping each other, pleading and accusing. Their eyes were hollow, reflecting her own fears. She could feel them clawing at her mind, trying to wrap tight fingers around the flickering memory of love and warmth. They're liars, she shouted back, and with fierce resolve, she forged a path through the chaos. I want to be another victim. As she advanced, strands of light pulsated around her, illuminating the darkness just long enough for her to glimpse the twisted nature of the anguish she fought against. The man in black loomed larger than life, his expressions shifting from rage to amusement, feeding off her terror as if it were a fine wine. There is no escaping your reality, he declared, his voice a haunting melody that twisted the sane into insanity. You will suffer as they did, trapped forever within this cycle. Not today. Emma's hands clenched into fists, igniting a force so profound it felt as if the very air crackled. The flickers of memory surged within her, reminding her of who she truly was. With every fragment of her past, a protective shield took shape around her. Jake, she screamed, desperation gnawing at her. I need you. In an instant, an electric pulse shot through the void. From that spark emerged the spectral silhouette of Jake, as if pulled from the depths of despair. His face was taut, filled with determination, eyes burning with fervor. I'm here. I believe in you, he shouted. The shadows writhed, losing their form as they recoiled from his light. For an instant, the laughter faltered, fear overwhelming the darkness. Together, Emma shouted, reaching out to him. Hope surged, synchronizing their energies as they stood united. The shadows swirled violently, a maelstrom of anguished figures that clawed and reached toward them, but the vortex of light around them blazed, cracking the darkness. Push through, Emma, Jake urged, his presence a fiery shield against the darkness. She felt him grounding her, tethered in love and hope. The shadows screeched, lashing out, but with each agonized cry, their forms began to splinter and fade. In that moment of blinding clarity, Emma understood what lay ahead. This was not just a battle against the darkness around her. It was a fight against the darkness within herself. She clenched her fists tighter, pushing past the painful memories that threatened to engulf her. Together, she echoed, let us break this cycle. They stepped forward, defying the walls of shadow. Emma's heart raced, a wild rhythm fueled by fear and determination. The very essence of the abyss shuddered as they advanced, lights brilliant and fierce, spiraling around them. But when the shadows shrieked, one final haunting whisper sliced through the chaos. You can never escape who you truly are. An icy grip latched onto Emma's throat, despair clawing at her heart even as the light surged around them. Would this newfound alliance be enough to pierce the darkness, or would the twisted specters of her past drag her back into despair? "Fight, Emma," Jake urged, his voice weaving through the shadows. But as the darkness closed in, the last remnants of hope felt dangerously thin. What lay beyond this moment? Would they breathe freedom, or find themselves chained in the depths of this nightmare forever? Emma held on to Jake's presence, feeling his light pushing against the shadows that clawed at her, trying to pull her back into their black embrace. "We can do this," she yelled, her voice ringing through the chaos. The shadows hissed, swirling like angry serpents, fear oozing from their depths. Together, they moved forward, the surge of light bolstering her courage. "You're not my reality," Emma said firmly, her breath steadying. She could feel the memories and the pain, deeply buried and tangled within herself. But beneath it lay the truth. She had fought hard to find her way back and would not give in now. The man in black shifted, his menacing grin faltering as the glow from Emma and Jake brightened. "You think you can change your fate?" He spat, his voice cold as ice. "You want to succeed. Watch us," Emma shouted defiantly, grasping Jake's hand tighter as they pushed deeper into the swirl of darkness. The more they advanced, the more cracks appeared in the obscuring fog, letting through beams of shimmering light that danced before them like glowing embers. They stepped into the light, and the shadows recoiled. Emma felt the warmth wrap around her, seeping into her very essence. The faces surrounding them began to dissolve, twisted expressions shifting to surprise, then fear as the love they had long thought abandoned surged back to fill the void. "Is this what you wanted?" she accused, her voice rising above the chaos. The shadows cried, shrieking in outrage while their forms began to dissolve like mist in sunlight. "You wanted to trap me in my own fears. But I choose love, I choose freedom." The realization that the darkness stemmed not from the outside, but from within her filled Emma with an unyielding strength. "I let you in long enough," she said, her voice steady this time. "But you don't own me." With that declaration, the brightness exploded, illuminating the shadows like a cleansing fire. The laughter that once echoed maliciously began to turn to screams of despair as the darkness was consumed by the light. Each cry a reminder of the truth she had uncovered about herself, the strength, the resilience, and the unwavering spirit to fight back. The man in black, his features twisting in rage, extended his hand in one final attempt to seize her. "No," he bellowed, desperation creeping into his voice, but Emma stood tall. "I am more than you. I have love, I have hope, and I will not be afraid any longer." She stepped forward, Jake at her side, channeling every ounce of courage into the brilliant light exploding around them. But in that moment, the shadows fell apart. The laughter diminished, fading into mere whispers until the last echoes dissipated into the ether, leaving only silence punctuated by the soft hum of air. With a final burst of light, the man in black let out a scream that pierced through her, but it was swallowed by the blaze that erupted from within her heart. As the glow subsided, Emma and Jake found themselves standing together in a transformed space, the fast food joint replaced by a serene landscape, dawn breaking over the horizon. Fresh air filled her lungs, sunlight pouring warmth onto her skin. They watched as the dark restaurant melted away, transformed into memories of laughter and shared meals that now felt safe, untainted. Emma clasped Jake's hand tighter, warmth enveloping her like a hug. "Did we make it?" she asked, turning to him, her heart swelling with gratitude. "We did, Emma," Jake said softly, his smile radiant. "You faced your darkness and won." They stepped forward, each footfall steadier than the last, leaving the shadows behind. As they walked into the light of dawn, Emma realized that healing was an ongoing journey, not an ending. Love and pain would always coexist, but it was her choice, the victory over her fears, that would lead her onward. With hope gleaming in her heart, they ventured forward, ready to embrace life anew. And just like that, the horror of the night faded into a distant memory, a lesson learned not just of overcoming monsters, but of discovering the light that resided within her all along. Now, you. Guys, this is your moment. You need to subscribe to the channel immediately so you don't miss out on the next exclusive story that's waiting for you. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let us show some serious love. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this epic ending. What did you think? How did Emma's journey resonate with you? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.